Good evening friends. Here I am going to speak with you about the concept Simulacra and Simulation by John Baudrillard, and he is a French sociologist, John Baudrillard, and theorist of postmodernity. He published the book Simulacra and Simulation in 1994, and it's about the reality and its representation. He speaks about how we represent the reality. In the beginning he says the simulacrum is never that which conceals the truth. It is the truth which conceals that there is none. The simulacrum is true. In his book he says like this. And in lexical ordering, simulacra is a material image which appears as something else without having that something's features or essence. In the word meaning, the simulacra means it's an image or a representation. It represents something, but it lacks the essence or features of what it is representing. That is a simulacra. Okay, that just means when we see reality like the territory of India, we use map. We are representing the reality of territory into maps. That is he's saying how we represent.
And it's a reality. That reality is represented in some forms. All these forms are likely to be images. You can call it images. So you see, look yourself up in the mirror.
Yeah, that's a representation.
It's a representation, right? It's a representation of reality.
Simulacra is what's representing, but it lacks the essence of what it is representing. We have seen the map of India, but we can't say it's India. The India is something different. The territory is different, and the map is different. That's a map territory philosophical relationship. It's like that. It cannot. The map cannot represent what India is.
Like we cannot represent the hills, rivers, and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Right. So it's a map which represents that this is the border, and so you have representations. This color represents mountains. This color represents sea. Not exactly the reality. So lacking the essence of reality.
And this map territory relationship, the Jiddu Krishnamurti giving an example. It's like one man is hungry, and if we give him the list of foods he needs, it won't satisfy his hunger. We have to give him the real food. That's the relation between map and territory. It's not sufficient. The list of the food is not sufficient to decrease his hunger. We have to give him the real food. And it's then a concept of simulation which connects to a hyper reality. Hyper reality is something real which has no origin or reality through the use of model. That's a hyper reality. Simulation is the process, and simulacra is its phenomenon. Simulation is what the relation between the reality and representation, when it gets blurred or the distinction between these things gets eliminated. It's called simulation, and the phenomenon that we can obtain by this is called simulacra. In that book, in Simulacra and Simulation, Baudrillard asks what happens in a world that is ultimately denied all access to the real and in which only simulacra and simulation exists. He says that we are living in such a world. We cannot have access to the real. We cannot have access to what the reality. We are only living in a world which only having simulacra and simulations. We cannot know what India is. We have only the maps of India or other images of India or other representations of India. We don't know what India actually is. Thus we are living in a world of simulacra and simulations, of representations. And there are certain degrees of this representation, how it represents reality. He gives 3 orders in which the reality can be represented. 3 orders of simulacra. That is, the first order is there is a representation of the real and it is obviously artificial. We can know that it's artificial, and we can see it's a representation of that reality, and it is artificial, that it reflects the reality, but we can assume that it's not the reality, like that the novels, maps and realistic paintings also all like that. We can see the novels which they're saying it represents reality, but it cannot represent the reality in that much sense, and the realistic paintings of that Mona Lisa and all, it represents reality, but it lacks something. There's a distinction. We can see that distinction between reality and representation. And in the second order, the boundary between reality and representation even gets something much more blurs. The difference between representation and reality is not clear in this state. In this representation, second order representation, the distinction between the reality and its representation is getting much more blurred. In some sense, representation has become as real as think it happens. Sometimes we misunderstood that the represented thing, in the way it represented, we assume that that is reality. We are getting confused in this state, like that of industrialization, that what we study in development communication and all. We so most of us think that industrialization is that is the criteria for development. But what we by the reality development, we just have an image of industrialization. We are about roads and factories and much more sophisticated buildings, concrete buildings. We think it is the modernization, it is the development. That's what we have learned in the later classes by Samarjit sir. He said that's not the development, and he said the UN that definition and other things like that. But in this media and in this world, the people are confused that this is just an example. The development is that of industrialization. When a thing gets industrialized, we are much more developed. And it becomes the distinction between this industrialization and the development getting blurred. The reality is not that. The reality is not industrialization. But the actual meaning of this modernization, development is not industrialization. But we are getting confused, or the things, the systems made us think that it is that. This is reality. You have to think this is reality. And that's the second order. It masks the reality. It conceives the reality and gives us a representation which is just like the reality. Or we made to think that that's reality.
The second order we say is reality is conceived. Something is shown. We start looking at the representation as reality. There is no source. What is shown, what is seen becomes a reality. The reality, so in which case the difference between the distinction between reality and representation is blurring, is what is seen.
We can see that.
It's slightly philosophical, but how it is going to be applied, how that we will discuss.
And in media also it's like that. We have no other access to the reality. We have to believe what the media is showing to us. Yeah, even if it's in the case of that an issue. What it gives, they have certain like agendas or something, and they represent according to their agenda or their ideas or views. We think that that's the reality. That's just one fact of reality. Actually, we cannot. It's a problem is we cannot get what the actual reality is. We are living in such a world. We don't know what the reality. We have to depend on other sources to get the reality. And in the third order, simulacra is that of simulation which replaces the relationship between reality and representation. Reality itself is thus lost in favor of a hyper-reality. Here in the third order, it masks the absence of reality. We know there is no reality, and it masks this absence of this reality. You will be able to get it with the example of Disneyland. Baudrillard in his book gives the example of Disneyland. It's like in Disneyland in America, it's like a world. In Los Angeles, they have created a world with mountains, rivers, and other things, and all these stuffs. And it's like we know that it's not real. But at the same time, in that world, we can experience the things as in the real life. We can walk through the mountains, we can experience the river, everything. They have constructed an experience. That's the thing. We think that that's a reality. That actually that's hyper-reality. Hyper-reality is something that it is a representation, but it doesn't copy any other reality. It's just another world. We know it's not the world, but we have to believe that we just experience that we are living in such a world. Yeah, that's it. That picture is of that second life. That's a virtual world where we get avatars and we can do business there. We can spend money there. We can roam through the streets and meet people, the avatars of people, and we are living a second life there. That's a virtual world. In hyper-reality, it combines the virtual reality and the physical reality like that, and it's a different dimension. They are creating a different dimension. Actually, that's not the reality.
So he's talking about Second Life. I don't know how many of you have visited Second Life. Second Life is an online virtual world. It's another world recreated online by Linden Labs. It's by Linden Labs. I don't know how many of you have access to it. The moment you go there, you are asked to actually, this is both of us. You will be asked to take on an avatar. You can you have to choose an avatar. You have to choose your costume. You have to choose your hairstyle. You have to choose blonde hair, you a girl and a boy, and trousers, whatever. Like all of this. You want to be black, you want to be a Caucasian, or whatever. You can choose all ethnic the same. And then you enter, and then there are different terrains. And you walk through the terrains. Then all of a sudden you walk, and now it's you can see, you can walk as you move. When you operate the computer, you are actually walking. So you can walk through a park. There is a park that is everything that you want. Because people can also create. For example, you want to create a world that can also be created there. So you walk through a park, and then you will find there's another girl sitting there. And that's another sitting alone and music, thinking do something. And who is that? That's another character. Who has entered the avatar. So you can go talk and
she is
chat.
accessing that from some other place.
Yes.
I mean, actually she exists.
Yeah. She exists.
Like I am donning that avatar by entering that site. The other girl who is on the sitting there, she is also donning some. It is also done by somebody else sitting somewhere else.
Yes. So now what happens? So you are actually embodying a character or an avatar, and you are entering this world. Then you enter into a talk. Then you ask her where she from and what she is interested, and then you can ask her, for a date and all that stuff. Then you have everything. You have a pub. You can go. You can dance. You can jig and you can drink.
It's a kind of
It's another world. It's another world. I mean, everything that whatever you do in the world, you can trade. You have dollars. You can exchange dollars. And I was even telling you.
Indian dollars there. Simulated money there.
Simulated money, yeah. It's a simulated money, it's not cheap. So what is happening is you are not aware of the reality. I should say you are not conscious of the reality. You will not be conscious of the reality the moment you get into the avatar, embodying yourself. Your body goes into this, right? Into a technologized character actually this is. And you will just engage in activities and so on for long. This is crazy in other parts of the world, especially Scandinavian and Canada and US and all these places, right? They also play games. Everything that you do. You are in classes. Some classes will be there, something similar to this, and a teacher is teaching, and you entering. Some people entering late and chatting and sending messages, and Jay is doing, and all that will happen, right? Now, all of this will happen. Where is that reality now? It's merged into this online space. All right. Now that is becoming a reality, or that is replacing reality. The reality is your body exists outside the machine and you are grounded in this earth. No, that is not about the machine. That reality is slowly playing out, and actually you get into the space. And so the distinction between reality, right? What is represented goes. Now it is no more representation. It is simulated, it's created, and then you enter into that space, and that becomes a hyper reality space. Actually, people who enter, you enter into Facebook and you spend about 1 hour more than that, right? It happens, isn't it? So you embody yourself into a different space and distracting and blah blah blah. So you uproot yourself from a particular context, and then you are moving about the whole world. It's like that, walking around, the earth. So that's what is called hyper reality. So that reality, the distinction is replaced, and you can try playing these games.
It's like the first order, it reflects reality, and second order the image masks the reality, and in the third order image masks the absence of reality. In that second life we are not aware of that we have a body, we have a home, we have a like these physical structures like this. We are immersed in that virtual world. We live in a second life other than this reality. That is masks the absence of reality.
Third order of Simulacra, it masks the absence of reality, that image. The fact that there is no reality is masked. Absence of reality is no reality. No reality is masked. So when no reality is masked, this becomes a reality. That's hyper reality what he says.
On the fourth order of simulacrum, here it is like they were hiding the absence of simulation. Any inference of reality long lost in these obstructing layers of illusion. Here it's the hiding the absence of simulation. There is no simulation. They hide the fact that there is no simulation. It's a fourth order. It's another dimension. It's getting much more complicated from the first order to the fourth order.
Actually, I'll also tell you. So, for example, take the case of e-learning or online courses, right? So, I guess like you you are there in the group. I'm start using Facebook. Naturally, our children should be using Facebook. Now, what is this? So, the face-to-face online classroom. I'm sorry, face-to-face real place-based classroom. That is reality for us. Now, we are representing that. Now, that's what we are doing. When I record this voice, now what is happening? We are recording this and uploading it in a space, in a virtual space. So it is representing the real place-based classroom activity. So that is first order. Now, second order is you also start participating in it. Interaction takes place. When interaction takes place, then for a moment you will forget the distinction. Slowly the distinction is blurring. When I just upload whatever is happening and then you have to just listen to it, then it's a representation of reality. It just reflects. But go to the next action where you are also asked to upload your assignments. There's a quiz, and the fact that I am available up till 8 o'clock in the evening for any clarification. Then the distinction between treating classroom as a reality and this as a representation is blurry. Now this can also now become a reality. Right? That's the second order. The third order is, so there are a lot of online courses available. I will introduce you because some of you who are interested in design should take up these courses. Now what is happening? You take these courses, no real classroom. Everything is online. You have to be there, you have to take this, you have to submit your assignments, you'll be evaluated, you'll be given score, and eventually when you complete the course successfully, and if you pass, then you'll be given a certificate. That becomes a hyper reality because the reality is pushed between. Right? So how you apply this in different concepts? In which space, time, or is of course in a matter of.
It's hyper reality, just what hyper reality is. It's a term used in semiotics and postmodern philosophy to describe an inability of consciousness to distinguish reality from a simulation of reality, especially in technologically advanced postmodern societies. Hyperreality is seen as a condition in which what is real and what is fiction are seamlessly blended together so that there is no clear distinction between where one ends and the other things. That's hyperreality. It's no longer a question of imitation nor duplication nor even parody. It's a question of substituting the science of the real for the real.
So substituting the science of the real for the real.
So
nothing is represented. Okay, there is another argument laid out by my favorite author, Deleuze. He says the moment you have representation, this is also I discussed with him. I mean, slightly little away, but I'll tell you what it is. The moment you have something called representation, then there is something called reality. And when you say there is something reality, that reality becomes the source. What is represented is a mirror image. So a mirror image will be inferior to the reality, isn't it? Because the source is the real one. And so the mirror image is like it may lose some quality, whatever, etc. Right? But then he breaks all these molds and there's nothing called representation. He is also like, argues on this line. The moment you have reality and representation, alright, then you have identity construct. We have handled that when we talk about identity. When we discuss with identity, then I will discuss it. So he says, that's a semiotics. No, but actually what semiotics does is, what is the role of semiotics? This means this, right? That's what it is. So when you say this means this, that is the signifier becomes a kind of a source, a reality. The signified becomes a kind of representation. So he is actually saying signs of the real, that is the signifier, substituting the signs of the signifier for the real. Right?
We call it trade of science. Trade of science.
So he's saying it's a trade of science. So it doesn't, yeah. So he's not trying to place signifier above and signified below. So okay, when you want to say, he's cool, what are the images you would use?
Attitude.
That's a signifier, right? The signifier is you say cool. Okay. So while looking at it, semiotics in real sense actually says the real meaning is embedded in the signifier. It's there in the signifier, right? and you are creating a hierarchy. But here, he is not creating a hierarchy. Signifier and signifier are the same. The signs are traded, as he says. They are exchanged. So which means he is placing both reality as well as illusion on the same plane. He is placing reality and representation on the same plane. Okay, that's philosophical. It's a postmodern philosophy.
When he speaks of that Disneyland, he is criticizing the American society that he says they are in a Disneyland and they are not recognized that because they are in an imaginary world. They think that's real. That's under hyper reality. But what they actually is, they are in the world that they created. They are living a life like that. And I have just found one video on YouTube like that. How the Disneyland is rooted in this American's mind. How much it's important. Just that it just reflects the nature of the Americans. He says. This one just funny video there.
I'm being serious.
We going?
We're leaving today to go to Disneyland.
Are you joking?
No, I'm not joking.
Are we good?
Yes, we're going. Are you excited?
That's it. Like this, she is so much excited to know they are going Disneyland. So that's it.